Hi there, thanks for watching my other video. I talked about the Trinity and what happens after, let's say, the banks collapse. That you are in a world where there are people that have monopolies on energy production and delivery, and that they will take over everything because you have to pay for that, and they want to have something in return. And if gold and silver are the only means to pay, or assets or hard commodities, then they will be owning everything. So one of the conclusions should be it's very important to become autonomous as a locality. That's basically the philosophy that I adhere. I say, well, you know, you might have a future with lithium-ion batteries and compressed air vehicles and all that stuff. First of all, it takes a lot of energy to make all that, and if you are running out of the oil and you don't have the energy to make all the windmills and the vehicles and stuff like that, then it's not going to happen. Let's say you're preparing to have all kinds of products that will not fit in the society that you're going to, the one with very little oil, where people cannot really freely move about, where food production is a big problem. So you really have to think in a different fashion. You know, you can make a design electrical car, but if everybody is trying to, let's say, scrape every last grain of corn or whatever they can find from the ground, nobody will be interested in it. Nobody will be able to buy it. And what I think is a good approach is to reorientate and reorganize society so that you can have local autonomy, and that you work with many like a patchwork of local autonomous regions. And that is, I gave it a name, it's called the Agoracentric model. It's the model that orientates towards the town square, and it is something that you can do already. It's something that allows you to prepare and to learn how vulnerable you are to forced localization due to the end of cheap oil, and it makes you more aware of the real economy, productive value that you have in your region. All that stuff might sound a little bit boring, but the whole process is simply, let's say, defining a community. Okay, which are the people that want to form this community? So it can be your city, and then drawing a circle around it, 50 kilometers, and then decided that, well, what would happen if after the 50 kilometers there would be nothing there. You would be absolutely dependent on whatever is in the 50 kilometer circle or in the 30 kilometer circle. And you might say, well, if there is already a real system which is electric in between areas of within the circle, then of course it becomes a different shape, and it might be something bigger and smaller, and maybe there's a hydro dam in it, and you know. So, but then you can go down the list and say, well, we need to have food production for the people in the circle, produced in the circle. We need to have medical facilities for the people in the circle, available in the circle, and medical personnel, and all kinds of other stuff. So you basically become a ship, or a local vicinity. And then, because if you don't do that, if you are not autonomous like that, you're gonna have to draw from your neighboring environment, and that will put a load on the neighboring environment, which might not also, or quite surely in the current situation, is also not autonomous. And the other aspect, so this is like the most disturbing effect you get is if people have to move about a lot and find the places where they can still survive, and then they disturb whatever processes are productive and ongoing. So let's say these are the armies that are hungry and they're pillaging the cities and they're burning the houses and raping the daughters, just because they are very hungry and frustrated about everything. You don't want that. And of course the Republican answer to that is buy a lot of guns and make a perimeter and shoot everything that moves and comes closer. But that's not the solution if you're starving yourself. See, so you have to really think about what is it that is produced locally, and how do I define my locality, and then, as you know, if I can do that, if I can say, well, listen, who's on board with getting this region autonomous? And you're also talking about economically autonomous, more wealthy, because things will become cheaper if you don't, let's say, hemorrhage money to outside. And if it's not paper money but silver, it's even more important. All this autonomy is only a benefit. In the current system, which is dominated by the Trinity, by the energy companies, industries, and the banks, you are forced to be interdependent, because that is a divide and conquer strategy applied to you. There's something else that I want to say, which has to do with gold and silver, which should be my main topic, and that is the whole gold-silver ratio and the value of silver, and that whole, talking about it. Apparently, let's say, gold that is mined remains above ground and circulates, is not consumed. Silver that is mined is consumed. So there's very little above ground of the amount that has been mined previously. And people look in the history and they say, well, so gold and silver ratio used to be such and such, and now it's much, so 1 in 7 or 1 in 10 or something like that. Now it's 1 in 54 or 1 in 65, it used to be. And it should go back to 1 in 7. Or they say, well, the material, the physical relationship between gold and silver is there's, let's say, for every ounce of gold, there is 10 ounces of silver. I didn't rehearse the number, so I'm just saying something. And therefore, the price of silver should be blah, blah, blah. I think that's complete and utter nonsense. It has nothing to do with the amount. Have you ever, say, we're all living in a manipulated world, but we're also living in a world where people are carefully controlling supply and demand in order to make the prices that they want. Also, we are living in a world where people have preferences, and just imagine if America decides to, let's say tomorrow, somebody has an epiphany, and they decide to circulate a silver coin in the US. Now, from now on, they want to replace the dollar with a silver dollar, which would not be very expensive, or would be 1/10 or something like that, or 1/30th of an ounce of silver content. So they do that. They make this coin, a combination of silver and nickel, or silver and steel, and they circulate it. Well, that will drive up the price of silver, because suddenly there's a shitload of silver taken off the market and consumed. I think that's much more important. So what drives up the price of silver is when everybody buys it, and when it gets a monetary use. And it has nothing to do with the ratio, because silver is different stuff than gold. But there might have been a time in which there was a value ratio or an exchange rate for gold and silver, and that might have to do with the speed at which it became available in the market, and the government that simply want to set the price to make it easier for people to use it as money. The last thing, I think, is the most important thing, because they basically want to turn it into a fiat currency, saying, well, your ounce of gold is worth 10 ounces of silver. See, it's not the real value, because there's no discovery of price. But we want you to adhere to this rule, and we'll try to keep the illusion going. And that will free up the market, because it will create an order in which people can exchange and make deals. That's the origin of the ratio, I would say. What's the use of these remarks, you might ask yourself. Well, I don't think you should count on the ratio, or historic ratio, or the availability, or the physical availability, to determine the price, other than if silver is used up, it will become more expensive. It's also a reason, I think, for anybody that considers silver a monetary metal to reject it as a monetary metal, because you'll lose it. If silver is used up in industry and you make coins out of it, then you'll be losing that from your circulation. People will take it out, melt it, and sell it to the industries. The same would happen to copper, I think. You can, copper if mining becomes more difficult because the energy is not there anymore to do it easily, with all those trucks and trains and planes and ships, it's all way too expensive, or that all has to be coal-fired all of a sudden, then copper might be so scarce that you cannot really use it as money. Because people want to, they want to use the copper that is available in their, and it will be ripped out of everything where people aren't watching. So those type of considerations, I think, are also important. There's something I want to say about oil as well, because there was an analysis about the oil price, and it appears that it's been manipulated by lots of oil contracts that are not being used, or oil that is might not exist. It's manipulated up. I didn't read the article in too much detail, but one of the quotes it says was that the consumer price is kept artificially high, and that's ridiculous. And I don't think that's ridiculous at all. If you don't like the price of oil, then don't buy it. If you don't like the price being manipulated, then start controlling those who try to manipulate it. If you don't like the way, if you complain about Wall Street manipulation, end it. See, the whole Trinity situation where you have this controlling cooperation in between the industries, banks and energy companies, that create a comfortable environment for you to live in up until now, has two sides. One is that they do that and they don't allow you to escape from this situation, which you should, because things are changing and the Trinity is no longer viable. That's what I would say. The other thing is that you are not forcing yourself to escape. You're not stepping out of your comfort zone. You're not saying, well, okay, what is it? Gasoline $3 a gallon, which is not a very high price. We pay much more here in Europe, but anyway, what does that mean? Everything I do with my money is dependent on fossil fuels. The value of money is only has value because of fossil fuels, and you cannot dig it up yourself, and you're not trying. So shut the hell up. If you want a society where you have something to say about the price of energy, then make the damn energy yourself. See, that's the other side of the coin. And the irony, so the way of course it works is that somebody says, like me, make the damn energy yourself, and then you say, okay, let me try, and then you find out that the Trinity doesn't allow you to. That it finds all kinds of ways of making it much more difficult than it could be. You could be driving an ammonia-powered car. Everybody could be driving ammonia-powered cars. There's a whole infrastructure for ammonia. It's produced by the millions of gallons by the farming industry. It's just evaporating into the atmosphere, being a greenhouse gas. But you could be driving cars powered by ammonia. It works almost as well as gasoline, and it burns 100% clean. Why doesn't it happen? Well, because the guy that invented or made one of these cars a few decades ago, he allowed himself to be told that it's not an opportune technology and it shouldn't be done right now. By who? Well, by the oil companies. Stop being a, So if don't say that you don't like the price of oil if you're not willing to create an alternative for yourself. If you want to be dependent, then you cannot complain about, you cannot look a given horse in the mouth. Maybe you say that as well. But thanks for listening anyway. I appreciate your attention.